All right, so in our last video, we looked at how to bake texture maps in SideFX Houdini, but we just kind of touched on the process. And today I want to zoom out and just look at a really easy example together. So we're in Houdini 21 and we're in the Solaris environment, which is where you author USD files and use the Karma rendering engine. Now for today's example, I'm going to bring in an asset that I scanned using photogrammetry. It has some nice even lighting on it, which is what you want when you're doing photogrammetry, because then you could put it into different scenes and relight it, which is what we're gonna do here. So I'm gonna drop down a physical sky. We're gonna switch over to the Karma renderer. And now we're getting some more interesting lighting. Now, this is a very fast computer where you can see that this is not real time at all because it has to calculate all of these rays of light, all the soft shadows, and that's a very slow and expensive process, even on a fast machine. I'm just gonna tweak the sun a little bit here. There we go. So now we've got some nice shadows happening, but how do we take this and make it into a real-time asset? Because this is obviously too slow for something like Vision Pro. What we wanna do is take this high-quality asset and bake it down into a single image, really, that we can wrap and fake this in real time. So the next thing I'm going to do is create a component builder. And this is going to be our low resolution asset. So we'll call this low res geo. Call this low res. I'm going to go into this low res geo. And what we're going to do is import the same model here. So we'll do a USD file import, and we're gonna grab the same statue asset, and we're going to do an unpack USD to polygons. And now we have our geometry here. And the first thing you'd see is it has UV mapping coordinates on it already. That's great because that's something we need for this process. If we go into the UV view, we can see what are called the UV islands. And if we were to go over to the texture map for this scanned asset, we could see how the photogrammetry process was able to take all these different angles and map it on to that geometry. I'll go back into the perspective view here. One of the things we'll do first is a poly reduce. And this is going to lower the polygon count. And this is just for an example, because this is useful in a lot of workflows. And we can drop it down a bit and reduce the number of polygons and make it less complex. In the unpack USD node, I'm going to turn off these attributes, the path, the name, the file path, because they just will confuse the process. Instead, we're going to create a name node here and just call it low res mesh and connect this to our output. So if we hop back up to the stage level and we go over to this low res, this is our low res model that we just created. And now we have the low res, we have the high res, and we can start the baking process. So I like to merge these together. There might be other ways to do this. This is my preferred approach. So we merge the high res and low res, and you can see they're overlapping. That's fine because it's not going to matter with what we're doing here. I'm going to switch back to the Karma renderer. And we're going to drop down the Karma texture baker. Okay. And if we go to that node, it's going to give us an error because it's missing a few things here. And that's what we're going to set up now. So the first thing is it wants the high res mesh. Now in Solaris, we have this scene graph. We can see the whole stage here. We can see that we have our asset reference, and that's the high res original. And we can see that we have the low res, and we can reference these almost like a file system. So if we go into the texture baker for the low res mesh, we can do slash low res geo low res mesh. That's that name we gave it earlier. It's pretty happy now. It's already like baking, but we'll be more explicit about the paths here. We'll give it the high res path as well. Actually, I'm gonna switch to the big camera. Okay, so we'll give it the high res and we'll just make that explicit. Okay, so now we've got that. So what are we seeing here? Now this is just, it has picked, I think, the normals. And there are different things you can bake out. So if you had normal maps or bump maps, displacement, you can bake all those to separate images. None of these are what we want today, actually. What we want instead is lighting. So we'll go over to the lighting tab. We're gonna enable lighting, and then we'll enable beauty. And if we go there, if we look, beauty is assigned to the C channel. So we can go here and select C. All right, so now we can see our high-res lit asset being baked onto those UV coordinates. But there's some really ugly stuff going on. We have all these like black cracks all over it. So what's happening there? Well, so the way this process works is it's taking that high-res geometry and lighting, and then it's kind of casting rays to your low-res mesh. In this case, we have exactly the same geometry, and so they're kind of overlapping, and those rays are getting messed up, and we're getting these artifacts that we don't want. But we can fix this. I'm going to show you how. So if we look at the texture baker and we look at the inputs, we have this cage mesh, and that's what's going to fix this problem for us. So let's go back into this low-res geo and give ourselves a little more space here. Zoom in. Okay, right after the poly reduce, we're going to branch off there, and we're going to do a VOP, a point VOP. And this is just a node that lets us do some stuff to points. This will look a little complicated. It's really not. What we're going to do here is displace the low resolution mesh that we've created outwards a little bit. We're just going to balloon it. You could try scaling it. I find that this works better because it's going along the normals in a nice way. So let's just look at what I mean. So we're going to hop down into this node. We're going to take the points. So it's like each of these points, and we're going to bring those into a displace along normal. So we'll find our normal channel. We'll put that in, and we'll take the output and we'll bring that to the output point. And now as we increase the displacement amount, we can see that it balloons the mesh, right? Now we don't want it too much because we'll get new kinds of artifacts, but we just want to like puff up this model a little bit. And that's going to give those rays that are being cast more information about where they should start from. And I'll show you what the effect of this is. We go back up here to the sage. Actually, the first thing we have to do is actually give this a name. So we're going to call it cage, and we'll merge it together with our low res. And then in the baker settings, we're going to reference that under the cage. Under the cage mesh. So we'll tell it what it is. And boom, fixes that problem. So you can see now we're getting really clean baking happening here. So we're actually almost there. So I'm going to save this out, and we'll just call it bake test. So if we go over to this low res component we made before, if you're familiar with like Reality Kit and you've worked with USD files in there, this will look kind of familiar. We've got this low res component with geo and material. It's exactly what you would see if you brought an asset into Reality Kit. And what we're going to do is I want to preview what we just did with the baking step. So we're going to go, for now, I'm going to just bypass that cage. We don't need it at the moment. We go back up here, and now we see that we only have the low res mesh. And we're going to go into this material, and we're going to create a material X node. And this is pretty much compatible with shader graph materials in Reality Composer. If you're using that, you might have to make some little tweaks, but they're nearly one-to-one. So we can go in here, and instead of this standard surface, we're gonna use an unlit material. This is kind of the whole idea of this process. Is we don't need the expensive lighting calculations happening in real time. You can see by default, it's like just totally white. But if we bring in the file, if we bring in an image and we grab that baking map that we just made, plug that into the emission channel, there we go. And now we can actually switch over to the real-time renderer and look at that. So now we have this like mesh that is real-time, and it includes all that shadow information. Just for comparison, you go back and look at the Karma rendering. You know, it's got to compute all of that. It's too slow for real time. Go back over to our low res. We get something that looks very close to that, and it's completely real time, super snappy. Now we can take that model, we can bring it into our real-time Vision Pro experiences. Hope you like this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.